This episode is brought to you by Americas Rehab Campus. Get on the road to recovery with the best rehab in beautiful Arizona. Dial 1-833-272-7342. That's 1-833-ARC-REHAB.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now tuned in to the ARCast.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in once again to another episode of the ARCast. My name is Buddha.
I'm Vince.
I'm Michaela.
I hope you guys out there had an amazing Christmas. Man, it's been such a beautiful year so far, and we're definitely looking forward to 2023. I can't believe it's already
in a year.
That's crazy. It goes by so fast, right? But with the season of that, we had an amazing Christmas episode and we're getting closer to the New Year's. We had a recommendation from our brother Chris of a gentleman, man, and I'm going to introduce you to him here in just a second. But keeping up with the whole New Year's resolutions, a lot of us, some of our main goals are to lose weight or to get healthy, to get that six-pack for the summer, which I've been working on for 34 years. It still hasn't worked yet. But, I wanted, we have a gentleman here, man, who's got an amazing story, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to our good friend, our new friend, Justin. What's going on, Justin? How are you, buddy?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Yeah.
It's cool, man. We're happy to have you, man. You heard Chris's episode. That's a friend of yours, right?
Yes.
How did you and Chris meet?
So me and Chris met in the rooms of NA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We're both proud members of NA.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think I've known Chris now about probably 3 or 4 years, man.
Chris was telling me about what you do. He said, I know that you are a swimming coach, but do you also coach people that are like riding bikes and running too, like triathlons?
Yeah, so that's been like the latest thing I've kind of got involved with here over the last 2 years since the pandemic, is actually coaching some really high-level triathletes.
That's awesome.
So these are the guys and girls who are, they're swimming, they're biking, they're running. Initially, when I first got involved, it was what they call Olympic distance athletes, and they're swimming about 1,500 meters on a race. And then
15. How much is a mile? Is it?
Well, how many laps is that?
So I
wouldn't know miles either.
Like your high school pool or your local pool that you have in your community.
Yeah,
25 yards.
Yeah, I knew the answer. I was like, sorry.
So 1,500. They're swimming 1,500 meters technically. So that's about 1,700 yards.
Oh, wow.
So I'd say 70 times back and forth.
Man.
That's a lot.
But they're swimming in open water. They're getting in a lake, or sometimes they're diving straight into the waves in an ocean, or the triathlons are not taking place in pools. So they do their training in pools because clearly you have to.
Yeah.
But then they're competing like in what they call open water.
Wow.
And the ones that I'm working with now are what we call Ironman athletes. So that was, maybe 30, 40 years ago. A guy decided to, we're going to take this triathlon and we're going to scale it up. And he did it on the island of Hawaii, and they decided to swim 2.4 miles. 2.4 miles. So that's 4,000.
In the ocean?
Wow.
In the ocean.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
Dude,
I think that would be beautiful in a boat.
No, I'm right there in the water, man. I'm living vicariously.
So they're swimming that 4,000. So that takes just an average person probably an hour and a half to swim.
Yeah.
These guys are getting down to where they can swim it in 45 minutes.
Oh, man.
Then they're getting out of the water. They're hopping on the bike, and they're biking 112 miles.
Oh, man.
112 miles on the bike. So that's taking me and you 10 hours. It's taking these guys literally 4.5 hours.
He's reminding me of my athletic career because I don't know if you know me, but I was a former athlete, and I actually won a gold medal for the United States of America at the Pan American Games, and I played, ran track and stuff like that too. I didn't even won the NCAA championship. So I'm listening to you talk, and I'm thinking, wow, I wish one of my coaches would have told me not to use drugs and alcohol back then, but not one of them ever mentioned it. So you know what, though? They led me to be that star, but no one led me away from what I shouldn't have been a part of. So I can't wait to hear his story and where he's going now as this coach.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Dude, you should have seen his legs. I've seen pictures of his legs where he's running with, like, I don't know what it's called, but when you have like that parachute behind you to work it. And he outran or outjumped Carl Lewis from 14th place to the NCAA championships to winning first place, man. Like, he
beat Carl Lewis.
In 1982, I won the NCAA.
Wow.
He was
crazy, right?
number one in the world at the time.
And like that story is just it's so amazing because, you know, like from my point of view, I never had sports in my life ever, right? And it wasn't until a couple years ago when I was really feeling horrible in my body where sports has just been something that like I get involved in doing. It started with calisthenics, doing classes here. It's completely changed my life. And now it's like, man, I can't see my world without it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And just seeing people who have been in that environment for so long and live that life, it's just I feel like I'm one of you guys now, man. I'm trying to get to that level, dude.
And Buddha, thanks for inviting me out to see your kids participate in sports.
He came through and we my son for the first year we had flag football.
Yes,
we got in flag football and you know, it's just amazing how God works in different ways. The coach that we met came from Nebraska. Huge fan of the Broncos. Found out that we did a radio show with Vance. Vance came down, spoke to the kids, you know, and it's just those things, man, just make you feel like you're in that right place at the right time, you know? So, but
so
anyway,
back to triathlon.
Yeah, no, for real.
Before we started, you were kind of telling us how you got into triathlons and how it was kind of unique.
Yeah. So, well, during the pandemic, the pool, basically the swim pool where these visiting triathletes from Canada would practice and work out.
Yeah.
It obviously got closed down during the pandemic. And I actually had the only swim pool I know in Tucson, probably in Arizona at the time, that was actually open for the entire duration of the pandemic. So because it's a privately owned pool, we just stayed open and allowed it to be there for people who wanted to come and exercise. I mean, if people wanted to swim as their exercise during that time, we just kept our gates open and kept it going. So this Canadian national coach, he gave me a call up and he said he needed some place for his swimmers for his triathletes to practice. And he brought a group of pretty high level athletes in. In fact, they had chosen the Canadians had chosen their Olympic team, their triathlon team at that point. And so two of the girls in the group were going to the Olympics.
Wow.
And within a week or two, he handed the reins of the swimming part of their triathlon directly over to me and said, hey, I want you to coach these girls. I mean, triathlon's an interesting sport because I don't know how it was with track and field, but with distance running and distance biking like that, as a coach, you're not much more than, hey, here's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
Go out there and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Swimming, we're in this little 25-yard pool, so we can be like really hands-on and close with them the entire time they're training. I mean, I can talk to those kids or those athletes as they're competing. So he didn't have a lot of experience with that, like one-on-one, having to interact with an athlete every minute and a half, 30 seconds, you know, and that's what I do for a living. I interact with kids and swimmers 4 to 8 every afternoon. That's what I do. So long story short, worked with these girls. They really enjoyed it. They started to like put it on their Instagram and put it on their YouTube and so on, and word kind of spread. And within about 6 months, we call him the most popular triathlete in the world. He's not the best triathlete in the world, although he has come second at World Championships twice, and he has won numerous races. In fact, for a while, he held the world record for the Ironman.
Wow.
Well, he showed up at the pool, and he said, hey, I've heard good things about you, and I want to give it a try. My swim sucks. And that's the story of most triathletes worldwide. My swim sucks. I can't swim. And they're normally really good on the bike and really good on the run. And so he wanted me to help him with his swim, which I agreed to do. And that's where things like really changed because, he's got over 500,000 followers on his YouTube and he's got a huge Instagram following. And he literally is the the guy that everybody knows and talks about in triathlon.
Oh,
and
man.
they all know that he struggles with the swim. And they're always constantly wondering and asking him what he's going to do about his swim, how he's going to improve his swim, what's the plan for the swim this year.
Yeah.
So for the last 2 years, he's been with me. So I've become kind of a part of his journey that he chronicles and puts out there. And because of that, now we just get a ton of visitors. Just
man.
a ton, just triathletes from literally around the world. I'll get calls from around the world. We're coming to the US, or we're coming to Tucson. We really want to come and swim. Can we come and swim with you guys? Can you give me a little lesson? Can we join your practice?
I want to go swim now, dude. That's amazing.
So, but that's all like, that's just what I do. Like I coach swimming and I teach swimming.
Yeah.
But then if you were to try and describe what you do, like a podcast, and you're, got all this fancy equipment and you have these cool people who come in and sit with you. And then it really becomes like, yeah, but what are you really doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you really trying to do here?
Yeah.
And I've had that question kind of rolling around in my head. Wow, forever, ever since I started coaching, which is about 20. I started coaching directly out of college. So I did my 4 years. Well, if we go back to the beginning, you want to go back to the beginning?
Yeah.
I grew up in South Africa.
In South Africa.
South Africa, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And you spent all your childhood there?
I was born there. I was raised there. I went to school there. I swam there. I played rugby there. My two brothers. My parents were originally from the UK, and they had moved out to South Africa. They wanted to see the world. They didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
There was a job offer in South Africa. My dad's like, oh, do you want to go? My mom said yes. They went. They settled, and they just stayed.
Wow.
So we grew up there.
Well, was there any like, going back to the beginning, was there any addiction in your family that you saw before? Like, like between your mom or your dad? Did you experience?
No, not overt addiction like we think of it. If I think of it now, what I know about addiction and me being an addict, I mean, I'm like full-blown addict to this day. Like, I'm an addict.
Yeah.
I mean, we believe NA. If I ever say we, I'm probably talking NA, because NA saved my life.
Yeah.
NA is how I got clean. NA is how I learned to live my life again. NA put me back in touch with God.
Okay.
I grew up very in touch with God. My grandparents were my grandpa was the top guy in the Gideons in the UK. Those are those guys who put the Bibles in the hotel drawers.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, the Gideons put the hotel. So
that's cool. I didn't know that that's what that was called.
Yeah, the Gideons, they're called in the UK anyway. And he was the top dog in the Gideons. And we grew up. I grew up knowing God, like knowing Jesus, knowing who he was and what he had done for me, and all of that. And somewhere along the line, I forgot it all.
It happens, man.
I just forgot it all, and I just chose to ignore it. Not that I didn't believe it. When I first went to NA and I got reintroduced, and they call him the higher power, because NA is very we don't want to offend anyone.
It's spiritual.
Yeah. So we refer higher power. But there's many of us in NA. We know who we're talking about. And so, my eyes opened back up, and I realized, it's been years and years and years since I even had a conversation with God.
So when did you, going through the school process, when did you realize or start dabbling with substances where you realized, I have a problem? How old were you?
When I had a problem?
Or what? Let's start from the beginning. When did you start?
So South Africa is pretty unique, because in the 70s and 80s and 90s of South Africa, we grew up under apartheid. So apartheid was a legal system that separated people by their race. Okay?
Oh, wow.
So we're living in South Africa. I don't know how much you guys know about, how much do you guys know about apartheid?
I've never even heard of it, man.
Mm-hmm.
No.
So, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Apartheid.
Educate us.
Basically, South Africa as a country, the southern tip of Africa, very rich in gold and minerals. And when the Europeans started exploring the rest of the world, and they were trying to find a shipping route to the east, because they were tired of going over the land to get over to the east to get their spices and their silks and their fancy stuff.
Yeah.
So they were trying to find a shipping route. And of course, Africa's pretty big.
Yeah.
So they would leave Europe and they would sail down the side of Africa for years and years, right? They would sail and sail and sail, and they would have to come back. Then they would sail and sail. Eventually, they got around the tip of Africa. And where they landed there and stopped, that was obviously South Africa. And with the minerals and the fact that it was a big part of this whole shipping route to the east, it became like a really precious place for people to control.
Wow.
So even back in the 1700s, it was like, man, this is a place that everybody wanted.
Wow.
And there was a lot of fighting between Europeans of who controlled it, who owned it. There was wars fought over it. And then that was all backdropped on the fact that there were originally natives there as well when the white man from Europe first landed there.
Yeah.
So, of course, the natives stepped in and were like, hey, we were here as well. So just all through history, it's always been a place where people have fought over who controls it.
Wow.
And the British, by the 1800s, like they did with a lot of the world, right, the British colonized it and took over and said, hey, we'll restore order here and we'll keep it all. And then there were a group of white, they call themselves the White Tribe of Africa, the Afrikaners. And basically they had now, because they were related to those first people who had come around the tip of Africa back 150 years prior, they had a couple of generations now in South Africa. So they said, no, we don't want to be under the British anymore. We want to rule our own country. So they had a massive war right at the beginning of the 1900s.
Man.
And they kicked the British out and they took over.
Wow.
And then when they took over, they said, hey, we want to control this country. So they set up a political system, which we call apartheid, which basically relegated anybody who wasn't white to like being a second-class citizen, no rights at all. No rights. No right to vote, no right to education, no rights at all.
Man.
Nothing.
Wow.
And that system of apartheid was in place from like the early 30s or 40s, I think, all the way until the mid-90s.
Can you believe that?
The mid-90s. You've heard of Nelson Mandela?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So Nelson Mandela was one of the first guys who stood up in the country and said, this is not right, and apartheid is not right, and I'm not just going to stand by and let it happen anymore.
Yeah.
And what did they do with him?
He was a prisoner of war.
They locked him up.
Yeah.
They just locked him up. They said, hey, you're getting locked up. They locked him up on Robben Island for 40 years.
That's
right.
man.
And then the rest of the world kind of said, hey, you guys can't do this. South Africa, you can't do this. And so they put sanctions on our country. And we were kicked out of the Olympic Games. We weren't allowed to the Olympic Games. We weren't allowed to do any sporting events against other countries. We weren't allowed, a business wouldn't come to our country. No McDonald's, no Burger King, no Pepsi, no, like the big companies just said, nope, we're not. Well, because we had so much gold and diamonds and stuff, we became this like really self-sufficient country that just said, hey, we don't care what the rest of the world does. We're going to do our thing.
Uh-huh.
And they managed to pull that off. And when I say they, it was these Afrikaners. These they're like it's a Dutch-German mixture.
Uh-huh.
They farmed the land and they worked the country, and they were the majority white people in the country. And so that went on all the way until eventually the pressure became too much. I think in the early 90s, the rest of the world just and the president at the time got a conscience.
Okay.
He's like, the white president said, we can't do this anymore. And so they let Nelson Mandela out of jail.
Yeah.
And then they, I forget.
Reparations?
Yeah, like they're basically, because South Africa is a crazy country. There's just a lot of hate, because now we had all this history.
Yeah.
Now we're in 2023. It's still, apartheid's gone, but there's all the remnants of it and all the hate and Nelson, when he came out, he kind of set the tone for everyone because he said, hey, I'm going to come out of jail and I'm going to forgive everybody who did what they did to me.
Yeah.
And he convinced the country to kind of be with him and forgive and try and get along and try and love each other. And now that he's passed away, it's kind of gone back to there's just a lot of that hate. There's a lot of that stuff still there. So, and I grew up in the middle of all that. I grew up in that. I mean, I grew up in a really weird weird dynamic when I look back at it. I
Yeah,
mean, we were rich. We had a lot of money. We had everything we wanted. But I was in this country where nothing was really, there was no equality. You know, I was in this like privileged power place, and there were these masses. I mean, there's 44 million people in the country. 3 million of them are white, and we have all the power.
So how was it, you know, going places and, you know, living your life where you guys hated because of all of that? Or did they have like a certain attitude towards you guys?
Within the country?
Yeah.
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 It was tangible.
Man.
It was tangible. It still is to a certain extent, really tangible.
Wow.
There's a lot of crime. There's a huge disparity between the haves and the have-nots, like huge.
Wow. How interesting.
You know, so like we grew up, there's always like bars on the windows and trying to protect your stuff and trying to keep them out. And
wow.
And so one of the major questions I've had with my parents, like in the last few years even about it, is like, why did we stay there? Like, why did we stay there?
Yeah.
Because I can see it's totally wrong. They bought us, they raised us, like, yes, it's wrong, you know, and we don't support this, but we stayed. We were still there.
Okay.
We benefited from it. So that was like a really tough thing for me to kind of wrap my head around.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, yeah, I can see how like wrong it was, you know.
Yeah.
But as a 15, 16-year-old and you're in this really privileged position, like what could you do?
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, I left, right? I came to the States.
Okay.
So I got out of high school. And so as far as like using and addiction goes, during my formative years, this is where I started with the whole South Africa thing. Because we were in South Africa, we were really isolated. So I grew up, no drugs. There was no drugs. Like we were shut off from the world, dude. There was none of that.
Man.
No pornography, none. Cut off from the rest of the world. Dude, I saw a pornographic magazine when I went to the UK when I was like 13. I was just like, what?
Explosions going off.
Like,
man.
Yeah. We didn't get to see the movie. You know, if there's anything that the government perceived was like, you know, R-rated or we shouldn't be exposed to, blocked out. Music, the same.
Wow.
So we were protected because we were cut off from the rest of the world because of all these jacked up political system we had that we were trying to like prevent the rest of the world from changing us.
Yeah.
It also made us into this cocoon where like as kids and people living there, like you didn't really know what was out there.
Man.
You know, there was booze. There was a lot of booze. So like when I look back at it now, like, man, I mean, mine's a family of drinkers. Our friends are all I mean, people drink.
Yeah.
Really drink. Still to this day. So there was a lot of drinking. So what there was, we definitely took advantage of.
Yeah.
But in like what now in the US we think of as like, you know, your dad would never have smoked weed or done coke because it wasn't there. Like there wasn't anything like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, I could imagine that.
So coming to the US when I was 19, straight out of high school, and now I get on an airplane and I'm going to go and swim in the United States and I'm on a college scholarship. I mean, I land in LA and it was pretty quick before like all bets were off. And I'm like, wow, this is paradise right here.
Man, that's insane, man.
Yeah.
And so did you jump like right into everything when you got here? Or?
Yeah. So I'm an addict, right? I can get addicted to anything, like anything. So, you know, I kept drinking, discovered weed, like loved it. And then really, we didn't have casinos or gambling either.
Okay.
No casinos, no gambling.
Okay.
So, you know, as soon as I got here, like the sex thing became like huge.
Mm-hmm.
The gambling thing became huge. The weed thing became huge. And I kept it all under control while I still was competing because I was Division I athlete, you know, so we like, I don't know how it was with Vance, but for us, it was very like, hey, we're all on the straight and narrow while we're in season, and then season ends, and we just like go wild.
And so the first place you came here was Los Angeles?
Yes.
That's why I call it Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I landed in LA and caught a Greyhound bus to Bakersfield, California.
You know, an interesting story, just a lot of people don't know this, but that song by the Eagles, Hotel California, was written about Los Angeles and how much excess and the drugs and the sex and everything, because they came from a small town, went to LA for the first time, saw the excess, and was just like blown away by how much.
Guess where I used to fly out to almost after every game? Los Angeles, between there and Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Las Vegas, Los Angeles.
Yes.
Wow, man. That's crazy.
That's why Vance was lost.
Yeah. And so that's when I started to get, I think, really lost was at that point, because now I was away from my parents. They were on the other side of the world. This was pre-internet, pre-email. I mean, I was given my first email address when I was a sophomore in college.
You were alone here? You didn't come with any family?
No one, just my 2 bags.
In a whole new country?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Now
of
we
course,
can barely
once
even go to the grocery store without a phone. You know, like
For real.
the difference, like in aloneness, would be so huge.
Oh. And I lived alone then from 19 really until I got married and got clean, 42.
What year did you get to Los Angeles?
92.
In 92. Okay.
92 I got there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
1 year before I was born.
Wow.
Wow.
That's crazy. I can't even
It's just
fathom
so
that,
weird.
Michaela.
It's so weird to hear.
Well, getting old is also a crazy thing. I mean, for me to think like I'm almost 50,
Wow, you wouldn't be able to tell.
that's nuts to me. I'm like 50.
Man. So, all right. So going back to everything that you experienced, that's a long period of time. That's over from, you said 19 to what year?
42. I was 42 when I got married.
So over 20 years in active addiction.
Yeah, like raging.
And did you have any positive influences at this time? Did you meet good people, or were you just living in a complete excess, chaotic, where I just can't even?
So I never had to live in the gutter.
Okay.
I never had to live in the gutter. I guess from the outside, you would have called me a functioning addict.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But internally, like just complete chaos all the time. Everything, just chaos in everything, from my finances to my work situation to my personal relationships to everything was just always chaotic and dramatic and out of control. And I didn't really realize it. I'd say probably for the first half of it, I didn't realize. From 19 to 29, I just thought that's how this is normal. This is just completely normal. And then once I hit my 30s, I think I started realizing, wow, this is not normal. Other normal people are not living like this, but I'm going to live like this.
Man.
I'm not ever going to be normal. I'm going to live this way.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a wake and bake guy for my whole life.
That's crazy.
I'm going to have big dramatic events happen at work to me always. I'm going to be up and down on money my whole life. I just resigned myself to it, you know? And so the other thing, and I was listening to Chris's podcast where in his story, he got in really, really, really deep, really fast.
Yeah.
He went from like smoking weed to living under a bridge on like IV drug use, like, you know, really quick. I mean, it just went downhill. Mine was the complete opposite. Like I was in it and I found this comfort level in it and I just stayed there. And I just stayed there and I just stayed there. I think part of it was probably like fear. I knew how compulsive it was for me to do the things I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was just petrified to try and do anything else for fear that that'll just take me down another level. So I just stayed, convincing myself it wasn't so bad. I mean, what's wrong with getting stoned every day?
Yeah. You know, when you said that you started going to like the AA and stuff, was that pretty much like, did you get into anything a little bit harder?
I didn't get into any harder drugs per se, but I was definitely addicted to other activities, let's say.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely a sex addict, definitely addicted to gambling.
Yeah.
Just behaviors that were, for me, you know, the obsession and compulsion to do those things was just as strong as it was to get high.
And how was it like when you went into the meetings? Did you feel like you were addicted to those things at the time, or were you just too focused on like the drugs part of it? Like, I'm not that bad, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I went in there to figure out how, really, as a lot of us say when we go in there to try and figure out how to use successfully.
Yeah.
How I'm going to go to that meeting. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to be able to keep smoking weed, but not have my life be so fucked up.
Yeah.
And then gradually over time realizing, wow, this is not about the weed or the sex or the drugs at all. This is a way of thinking, a way of living that I've just gotten completely mixed up on, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, one of the like I said right near the beginning, one of the big things was I realized that I no longer knew God. I'd completely forgotten that God existed. And essentially those other things took the place of it, right? I was
idolizing,
praying
That's
to the
real.
altars of those things every single day and thinking that was enough and that was going to cut it. And I mean, I was brought to tears that first time when I consciously was like, oh my gosh, I haven't spoken to him for however long.
Well, take us back. Where were you when you had that thought? Like, you know, do you remember exactly where you were at?
So I was at, I ran my life off the rails. I got to a point where, as opposed to send me to rehab, a group of families who cared about me and I was willing to open up to enough about them, about what my life was really like, agreed to kind of take me in. And they took me in, a family took me in and said, you're going to live with us for 6 months and we're going to look after you. And
we're going to love the heck out of you.
We're going to love the heck out of you. And I mean, an amazing family, just an amazing Christian family who were awesome for me.
That's great.
And it was maybe the second night and I came home from a meeting and I started talking to the mom a little bit about it. And for whatever reason, she bought out a book and I can't remember. She bought out just it was a children's book with one of the Bible stories, like in a children's version. And she started reading it to me. And because of what I had said to her kind of resonated with, she's like, I think this is what you're seeing or hearing or feeling. And she started reading it.
Wow.
And I just right away, I just like felt God like right there. And I was, it was like I felt so bad that I had managed to block him out for that long. Someone that I knew so well. And now I realize, like, all during that time, like, man, how much did he look out for me?
Oh, man.
How much did he look out for me without me even acknowledging his existence for so long? And he just looked after me and looked after me and looked after me and looked after me, Yeah, now I really like, I try and remind myself constantly, like, what I'm here for, or figure out what I'm here for. Ask God, what do you need from me today? What do you want? What would be the best? And I mean, I struggle. I'm a struggler. I don't look at myself as someone who's like, man, I've got it all down. I'm past the hardest part, and now my life is like bliss.
Yeah.
I really struggle. I mean, there's still things to this day that I like struggle with, and struggle to in the moment act in the way that God would want me to act.
Yep.
This is one of the things he wants you to do, which is in Colossians. He said, put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you, your sexual immorality, your impurity, your passions, which means your addictions and other things you want, all these evil desires, your covetousness, and your idolatry for other people. Put away those things. That's what he said he wants right here in the Bible.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
Man, and it's amazing how those things we don't even realize. They start off as fun and then they become a stronghold.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you can't even function unless you're, that's the main definition right there of idolizing, putting something in front
Then he
of
said in
God.
Galatians, and all those who have put that away, now Christ is in you. You have crucified those desires of your flesh and all those passions and things that you desired. You don't have those anymore.
Yeah.
Man. And I think you're touching on something very open. You're being very transparent about, your testimony and stuff. And I think it's a good wake up call for anybody who is new in the recovery to understand that you're never going to get to a point in your life where you're perfect. You're never going to get to that point in your life where, you're just there, dude. You're at that peak performance and you don't have to worry anymore. You have to constantly do maintenance on yourself.
It says you have to press on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I also think it's really a good reminder for people that are out there, maybe newer in recovery or just like straight up confused in recovery, that there is more addictions than just drug or alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
And that you can have addictive. I mean, I could say that I'm addicted to shopping.
Yeah, that's
and that's
up.
for sure, that was for sure at one point in my life a very, very unhealthy thing that I did. Anytime I was hurt, sad, upset, anxious, happy, I was buying something. And I mean like 2 a.m. in the morning buying stuff. Like I would get packages to my door and I'm like, I didn't even know what I bought. Like that's totally different and totally a different process to recover from, but it's still an addiction.
Oh, yeah.
And like I can get going where I'm like, okay, like you're crossing into bad territory again. You got to reel it back. Like,
Yeah.
Exactly right.
And a lot of people I don't think acknowledge though that there are other addictions.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Dude.
And by the way, 100% correct, guys, because it says right here in the scriptures, do not love this world, nor nothing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you love the world, then the love of the Father is not in you.
That's
So
real.
you're exactly 100% correct.
And it's
Many
amazing
types
to
of
me.
addictions.
Yeah, that's awesome, Vance. And it's amazing to me when you see, just like you said, most people don't see it as an addiction. A person can look at a drug addict and judge them and say all these horrible things, but then they're suffering with their gambling. Every time there's a fight on
lying.
UFC, they're over there putting in their money. You know what I mean?
Lying.
Yeah, absolutely. Lying, all of these things. And I think that's what's such an amazing thing about this podcast is we speak to those who are in recovery and we speak to those that are family members of recovery and we give people a different way to see their life because we all struggle from something.
Yes.
It could be a food addiction, a sex addiction, gambling, drugs, pride, ego, jealousy, hate. I mean, there's so
Work.
much that goes into it. Yeah, wealth.
Work.
Work can be
Work is,
addicting
I
too.
mean, I that's where I'll go now.
yeah.
I mean, and my wife will call me on it right away. Like, you're working because you don't want to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
Man.
And actually with these athletes, I've seen them where it's clear as day. They're addicted to the
Adrenaline and the
yeah, or
Yeah.
even just the act of working out. You
Yeah,
know?
Vance is over here raising his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Man, was that a huge addiction for you too? Was working out?
That was my biggest addiction ever since I was a kid, because like I told you, I never used drugs, alcohol, sex, or anything until I was even a freshman in college. But working out is what I did ever since I was a child. Every
Man.
single day, all I did was work out.
That was me, swimming. I just swam. My parents put me in swimming, 6 years old, and I just swam and I swam and I swam and I swam and I swam.
Guess when I learned how to swim?
And then
When I was 6. My dad didn't actually show me how to swim.
just threw you in.
How do you know?
I hear that so
I'm a
much from
swim
people.
coach.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's what they did.
He just threw me in the pool and said, when you get to the bottom, just push yourself up.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I learned how to swim.
Yeah.
Man.
But yeah, so that to me, that resonates with me, what Vance said, because really I didn't get into any of that stuff until you took the swim away. I got done with the swim, even while I was
Boredom?
in college. And at least it was an off-season, on-season, so I was always brought back.
Yeah.
But once the swim was gone,
You went crazy.
yeah, like big time.
And I'm curious now, where you're at. Did you notice any impact, like even with the food when you came to America on your swimming? Like did it affect you at all? Because I know there's so much like processed stuff. I feel like that's a huge
Yeah.
addiction that people don't talk about enough. I had a buddy fly in when I was making music who was a producer he came from Dublin. He flew down here, and I remember him asking us. He goes, "Why is there so many restaurants? Do people not cook in their homes?"
Yeah.
And that question alone blew me away, man. But okay, let's.
Well, I first sat in a Taco Bell that first afternoon I arrived, Bakersfield.
Oh man.
And we finished eating, and the one guy got up and he went and took his cup and he went over and like put more soda in it. And I'm like, what are you doing, man?
it's
Like,
honest.
what? And I'm like, you finished your drink and you just can go get another one over there? He's like, yeah, free refills.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, free refills? What is that?
Hey man, for all my fatties that are listening right now, this is for y'all, man. I gotta say it because I'm one of them. You know what I mean?
I mean, I can't even imagine what that felt like, because now you go into the place and there's 3-year-olds refilling their drinks,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's never even a thought process. So I can't imagine the culture
Bro.
shock that you were thrown into.
Yeah. And I mean, even now, and I'm now on the US thing for sure. Me and my wife just went a week to Italy. We were in Rome for a week.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
I literally in the morning, by the third morning, I'm like, hey, just bring me 3 of those coffees. Just bring 3.
hey, that's all right.
Yeah.
Because I'm so used to my like,
Huge mujo.
oh yeah.
That's funny.
Well, I mean, food is, I mean, that's another, we didn't even mention that, but I would consider myself still to this day a sugar addict.
Really? Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Man.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's tough. I've tried to cut down on the sugar, and if you're going to look at it like we do for the rest of our addictions, like we're supposed to, because although I talked about earlier not being perfect, there's one thing I don't do anymore. I don't get high. I don't get high, and I don't drink. Because if I don't do those two things, then the problem with those two things is they right away really distort my thinking. And then I'm off to the races, and then just all bets are off. Like I can't really account for anything after that. If I don't do those two things, even if I'm not being perfect, I have a fighting chance of being able to get myself back on the path pretty quick. As soon as I start drinking or getting high, I'm gone, and I don't know when I would come back.
Oh man!
Right now, if I, one of the things I do that is an issue that I work with constantly is anger. I mean, I can get fairly angry still, and I could beat myself up pretty good about getting angry as well.
Yeah.
But I know if I'm clean, I got angry, but I'm going to come around from that much quicker than I ever did before, and I'm going to be able to make my amends, and I'll be able to move forward and try and do better. So, and that's one of the things I learned at NA is if I don't get high, I have a good fighting chance on everything else.
Man.
So that's the one thing that we try and do perfectly, because there's no such thing for an addict like me as just part-time using.
Yeah.
I can't go out and have a beer on a Friday night. Have a beer on a Friday night like that.
You want all of them.
That just does not work for me. And fortunately for me, I learn a few things through NA, and, God willing, I mean, I'm 7 years that I've not had to change my state of mind.
Congratulations, man.
On drugs
amazing.
and alcohol. And so my life has gotten a lot better.
Wow.
A lot better,
That's amazing.
And then NA has also really helped me with how to live, how to keep it as a God-centered kind of life as opposed to self-centered. I mean, I is the most, and still am to a certain extent, when I get in my own will, I'm super self-centered, super self-centered. I want what I want when I want it. And I can get like that very quickly.
Yeah.
And then I also have really low self-esteem, So when I don't get what I want, and I want to and I feel icky about myself, then I'm going to lash out at you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my little cycle that I deal with now.
Yeah.
As opposed to, oh my gosh, I really feel like smoking a bowl. I don't get that anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
God. Because that is tough. Those first days, weeks, months where that's a real thing that comes strongly at you. That is tough.
Yeah.
But
Man. And I know you said, how long have you been married?
I've been married for 7 years.
7 years. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And how important would you say having a relationship has helped you through the recovery process?
My relationship is probably, I don't think I would be clean if I didn't have my wife.
Amen.
She gave me some purpose. She gave me a reason beyond just myself to live. I was living so self-centered.
Yeah.
So self-centered for so many years.
Man.
And she gave me an outside reason to.
That's awesome.
That's really wonderful.
So the sports thing, here's what I've started to realize about sports, athletic endeavors, trying to be a top-level athlete. And this is where my recovery and my work kind of start to merge in a little, and I feel like my recovery's even helped my work. So to me, any top-level athlete, at least the ones I work with, their way of thinking and their way they deal with the world is very much the same as, at least I was brought up, and I think a lot of people are, where if you work hard, you're going to have success. If you do A, B, and C, that's what's going to work. Very I'm me. How do I say this? when it comes to your success, like how you measure success. So most top level athletes are like measuring success by winning or losing, right?
Yeah.
It's winning or losing. I mean, the NFL is the most extreme version of that to me.
Yeah.
Like you accept, and I don't even know if Pete Carroll would actually say it out loud, but to me, he's the only one who would possibly say, hey guys, this isn't about winning or losing. This is about like us and what we're trying to do and our experience together and how we treat each other. To me, there's not another, I've never even heard another NFL coach in the end, like it's straight up about the win or the loss. That's all there is.
Yeah.
You hear them say it all the time. Like, doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a, what do they say? There's no such thing as a,
Failing?
no, when you lose, but you try and like say that it was a worthwhile loss, like you learned something out of it. You'll never, I don't feel like, so to me, in like the world we live in now, a lot of our stuff is measured that way. Like we're taught, like you want to be successful, you've got to win, you've got to beat people, you've got to do better, you've got to work harder, you got to.
And the next time you win, you got to win by a second better or whatever.
Like it's just more.
Yeah.
And there's very little about like the experience, like just the absolute experience. Like imagine if you were advanced, he was in it. So, but if you could just experience being in the NFL and enjoying that lifestyle and what you get to do for a living, for your paycheck, and just experience that without the pressure of, we have to win. Just enjoy that moment. Like, wow, this, what we have, what we get to do, who we get to hang out with, you know, get to hang out near John Elway. Like, just get to hang out near him.
Well, guess what, though? Because I was that professional athlete, you're actually telling me exactly what I did. My problem was what you're saying. So it's almost the opposite.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying about who I hung out with, to me, it wasn't about winning. It was about everything that you just now said.
Oh,
It's
really?
like it made him like a part of his identity.
Yeah, that was my problem.
Yeah. You know, and then it's crazy because on the outside looking in, you would never expect it.
No.
You know, and hearing the testimony and stuff, like, you know, growing up, not having much, growing up in a poor household and then becoming that successful. It's, I mean, youth that you have access to everything all at once.
I won't mention any names, but on the field, we won. But off the field, guess what? We would be going to strip clubs together. We'd be having orgies together. We would get in trouble in other states because we'd be out there partying and doing things we shouldn't be doing. And we did that 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That was the big problem. And we all to this day, and I won't mention a number of their names, but some famous guys that were Denver Broncos are still struggling right now with the different addictions because of the things that people they're hanging out with.
And it's such a different thought process, man. I mean, it blew me away the first time I heard, you know, that testimony.
Yeah.
You know, but I truly do. Are you familiar with who David Goggins is?
No.
He's very, when I hear you talking about the mind state of athletes and having that like win, you know, a loss is like a death. You have to win.
Yeah.
I think of like a very militant mind state of like, this is this is what you have to do. You know, if you're not waking up at 4 a.m, it's because your ass is lazy. Get up and start running. You know what I mean? And it does. As somebody who, like I said, starting to get into the health and wellness, that's one thing that I've been listening a lot to because I feel like that's the one thing that gets my butt up at 4:30 a.m. But I could see how if you live that constantly, it could probably be destructive towards you because you can cause injuries. There's a lot of things that could happen.
Yeah, and I think you end up not. So going back to then just the triathletes, let's say, and I was way out of my lane speaking about people in the NFL because I just don't know.
No, but I mean, it's cool. That's what
why
we
I was
do
listening.
here.
But it's a good like topic of conversation because it's things you don't think of.
Yeah.
You know,
These triathletes that I work with,
Yeah.
I more than anything right now on a daily basis, like this morning, you know, before I came here coaching, I constantly find myself as the coach trying to get them to just enjoy the process, be grateful for what we are getting to do this morning. Like we're here in Tucson, Arizona. It's November. It's 65 out. We're in a crystal blue swimming pool that's set at 80 degrees.
So beautiful.
You're swimming laps and getting fit, you know, and they're more consumed with like trying to do them faster and get better. And I'm like, man, if you would just, I feel like, and some of them are starting to let go, I feel like, of focusing so much on that outcome and just enjoying what they get to do and be grateful for what you get to do.
Man.
And you start to like see that bigger picture of like, man, we're blessed. Like we're blessed. It doesn't matter if you win the next race or you come third.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It literally doesn't matter. And I'll say that to them, you know, like it doesn't matter. And that's what I was trying to get at with when I'm as an outsider just watching NFL, like you can't, dude, that is about those coaches at least, they've got to win. I mean, look at them. If you don't win, you're a coach and you don't win, you're out.
They get fired, yeah.
You are done.
Yeah.
Man.
You cannot, I mean, Pete Carroll, I've heard him talk a few times, and he definitely is on the right track of like, he wants his guys to engage in the process. And like I said, I literally like feel like he's on the verge of saying, guys, if we all do the right thing and show love for each other and do our thing, I really don't care if we win or lose. He didn't actually say it, but I kind of felt it from him. And I remember it hitting me like, wow, you're ballsy, because I could not imagine another football coach being willing to say that. I mean, it's win, win, win. Like, you got to.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to 3 Super Bowls, but guess how many times in 10 years of my career did a coach tell me, do not be having sex outside of marriage, do not be doing drugs, do not be gambling? Guess how many times I heard it in my career? Zero.
Yeah, terrible.
Dude, and then like imagine the that feeling of, being there at the Super Bowl and then not winning and then having to come home, like when that's your whole identity. Like it's crazy. It makes me just, my brain go, I couldn't imagine.
Guess what I did when I came home from the Super Bowl? You already know that part of my story. I was in my closet trying to kill myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, so it really, but like you said, man, I really resonate with what you said about the swimming. Check that out. That's when they had to do a skin graft on him. Yeah. Wow. Crazy, huh? You know?
And there's almost no lonelier feeling, like hollow feeling than that, like all out going for it, trying to do some great thing,
man,
and then it's over. I mean, you know how many of these swimmers, these Olympic swimmers who get done, struggle with the whole mental health, depression, finding a purpose in life. I mean, it's really tough. Post-athletic life is super tough.
Thank you for validating another thing. I always say it's like climbing to the top of a ladder, thinking you're going to get to the top and have an identity, but the only place that goes down. Yep. And eventually you're going to get cut and get let go.
There we go. It happens to every single person.
Every single person.
Every single one.
Yes, sir.
What does the NFL stand for?
Not for long.
Oh,
he knows that.
There you go. Hey,
I didn't play. I'll tell you what, I love the game of football thing is beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Swim, right? The to me, watching people swim through the water and like hold water and move gracefully through it and do their thing, like little kids, you teach them to do some stuff.
Yeah.
You get someone off the street, look at it, and they're like, sorry, I'm like,
yeah, no, you're good.
They're like, whoa, that's like amazing.
Man.
Same as if we watch just a beautiful play, just executed like to perfection. You're like, man, amazing, beautiful. Like the pure, like the pureness of the actual thing at its core is just like amazing. That's what's cool about sports.
That's so cool.
But I feel like sports have also gotten so distorted by who knows what, evil.
Yeah.
Really evil.
But
I mean, look at youth sports even now.
Yeah. Oh, dude, don't get me started on that.
Full on. I mean, and that's everywhere. That's swimming. That's track and field. That's basketball. That's flag football. It's everything. I mean, it's nuts.
Well, and like sports for children, it's starting to take away childhood because, I mean, even when I did competitive dance and, first when I started, it was 1 day a week. Then it was 2. Then it was 3. Pretty soon I was at the gym dancing because ours was like a mixed gym and dance. But I was at the gym every day, Saturday and Sunday.
There we go.
Like my sister was in cheer and we were at the gym every day. I mean, my sister, she was one of the best cheerleaders ever. I still remember she went to like the Olympics of cheerleading when
that's crazy.
She was young. But my friend owned the gym and during Christmas they closed for a week and she's like, Miss Teresa, I need the key. I need to get in the gym because we didn't know anything else but being at the gym. And when you were speaking, I kept thinking about that saying, stop and smell the roses. That's that's been taken out of our life with the hustle of you got it. I mean, even in just school for education, like now kids in kindergarten have like 2 hours worth of homework. It's like, when are they going to go play? When are they going to go
crazy.
be outside? When are they going to learn that they like to kick a soccer ball or that they want to play baseball? Like it's just everything's now being figured out for us by all of the extras that we've got to do, that we don't have that fun time to enjoy the process.
There we go. And like, you know, playing with a football or swimming or going for a run, like those are the fun things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So to me, like the biggest
they are.
crime you can do is then to like take those things and turn those into a chore of their own or something that has to be done. I mean, I'm in the business of getting little kids to love to swim. Like that's my business, right? I teach kids to swim, and then I help develop that love of swimming and hopefully keep it going for, you know, the rest of their lives, hopefully. But I mean, I'll get them, they come in and they're in two categories, right? There's the parents who are coming in and say, hey, I'm looking for something healthy and active for my child to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, come on in. Like, yes.
That's so great, man.
Right? And then I'll get the ones who, we've gone to the swim meets and they've seen my team cap swimming really well, swimming fast, winning races, touching first. And then you get the core. They're like, hey, coach, we're looking for a good swim team. Like we're on the swim team, but we think we've seen what your kids are doing and we want to join that. And I'm like, oh.
Like you're over here just recruiting the best of the best.
You know, it's just like, I just know, you can just see already, like they already are too far into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, I just really don't want anything to do with it anymore. And it's funny because those first, you know, the first 10 of those 20 years that I talked about where I was in full active addiction and I was doing a job that I do now. Like I've done this job since 23 years old, the same job. I've never changed. You know, I've been able to dress like this and hang out by a pool my whole life.
That's fantastic.
And I mean, I had some really high level athletes back then in the beginning, but it had very little to do with what I was doing with them. They were extremely talented, extremely, extremely talented. And they were willing to, and their parents were willing to like sacrifice so much of their like personal beings for this endeavor to be a great swimmer. And the swimming world is not really making it to the Olympics that's looked at as the pinnacle because that is just such a pinnacle.
Yeah.
It'd be like playing football and not saying, oh, I want to play in the NFL, but saying, hey, I want to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Like not many little kids are saying, hey, I want to be a Hall of Famer. They're like, I want to play in the NFL.
They want to be Mike Tyson. Everybody wants to be the top
So in
dog.
swimming, it's like, I want to swim D1. I want to swim D1. I want to be a D1 swimmer. I want to be a D1 swimmer. So they're talking about going to college and swimming at one of these top Division I programs. That's looked at as like the holy grail of like, I've arrived and I'm a great swimmer.
Yeah.
And, you know, some parents are getting that in their heads at 9, 10, 11 years old. And they're like, literally like, hey, we're sacrificing time and money and quality of life right now because we're going to get the payback at the end when they're this good. I mean, it's so distorted and unfair on the kids and the whole experience. It's like,
well, and there's like the whole aspect of the parents thing to it. I remember, you know, when we were in cheer and dance, there was like politics for the parents within of like, absolutely, you're going to get close with the coaches, then you're going to get point, you're going to get the front, you're going to be the it girl, you're going to have your, 20-second of fame moment in the routine, whatever it is. And like, it almost can cause a relationship of resentment between child and parent, which I'm sure is just breeding a whole new slew of issues.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think you touched on a very important part, and I think only coming into recovery, you're able to see it from this perspective, but being able to have that opportunity of like, I'll give you a perfect example of this. My wife and I recently moved to Sahuarita, which is a neighborhood that's just south of Tucson, right?
Headed there after that.
They have the pool there. One of the most beautiful things for me is to get to the pool at 5 a.m. when it's 30, 20 degrees outside and you see that mist from the heat of the pool coming out and you get in, it's like a warm bath, bro. Like that's become a new passion of mine, is swimming, which is why I was so excited to get you here, because it's like now I see it as like, you know what? I don't want to get older. I want to get better, and I want to use my body for the first time, and I want to do things like this for the first time. And, and it's such an important thing to see it from that perspective, because there's always going to be somebody better, man. There's always going to be somebody doing things better. Like you can't try and be the top dog all the time.
No. I mean, it just, the analogy I use with the kids is, and the parents, I find myself having to educate the parents just as much as, even more so than the kids. The kids are easy. The kids are really easy because they're so, I love kids. I mean, I adore kids.
Little sponges, man.
And I get to like work with them every day. Like, it's just amazing.
That's cool.
I'm really, really blessed at what I get to do.
That's cool, man.
But the parents are, I'm like, hey, because swimming's all in this these hierarchies. You get standards. If you swim this many seconds for this many laps, then you're considered a B swimmer. Or if you can swim it in this time, then you're considered an A swimmer. And if you can swim it in this time, you're a AA swimmer, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And it never ends, right? All the way to the top, to the Olympics. And the Olympics in the US, you got to be the top 2 people in a particular race once every 4 years. I mean, the numbers are silly. I'm like, you're chasing this thing that is never ending, like money, right? Exactly like money. Like we chase, you get the guy who works for minimum wage, and he looks at a guy who's making $50,000 a year, and he's like, whoa, that guy's got some money. He's making 50, right? Yeah. And the guy who's making 50 is like, okay, but I know a guy, and I see a guy over there, and he's making 100.
Yeah.
He makes 100. And the guy who's making 100 is like my neighbor, the guy who lives next door to me. He makes 160.
Yeah.
He makes 160. And the 160 guy is like, yeah. Dude, there's another guy that is just down the office from me, down in my office, and he makes $250,000. That guy makes $250,000. And the guy who's making the $250,000 is like,
it's never
and on, dude. Yeah. On and on to like, hey, I know a guy, that guy, he just signed and he's making $10 million. Like, it's never ending, right? Yeah. And we're all somewhere on that scale. Like, I don't know, minimum wage to, we're probably all in the minimum wage to 100.
So my question to you is like, you're where God wants you right now. You're doing what God has put you on this planet to do, right? And I'm sure didn't always feel like you were in the right place, where you needed to be. What advice would you give somebody who's listening, that's out there? Maybe they're here from another country, or maybe they're at the lowest point of their life and they feel like there's no way out.
I would say to them that if God looked out for me and got me to where I am now, then I know for sure that he can do that for any single person. I mean, I was completely felt alone. I was the most alone feeling person there was. There was just no hope. And once I got back in touch with God and I was able to get clean, I end up where I am now, where I'm so blessed it's ridiculous. So if it can happen for me, I know it can happen for anybody else.
Amen.
Yeah, and it's to me, one of the takeaways I love of hearing us ask this question, at the end, is it's typically a more simple answer. It's not anything drastic, but it's almost a mindset thing, and where you're at. And I think that once you feel that shift to want to be clean, to want to be sober, that you start this new phase of your life where you are choosing gratitude and your mindset changes.
Yep.
And so for any Christians out there listening to your brother Vance, I'll say this: repent and get some help.
Repent and get some help, man. Find your faith. Stay rooted. You can't build a house on sand, right? It's blown away. You got to build it in a solid foundation.
Yep.
So that's awesome, man. Justin, thank you, brother.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man, for everything, man. You got to give me the links to, do you have a website and stuff, things like that? Like where you do your...
Yeah?
All right, you're going to have to give me those links. We can throw it in the show notes for anybody who's interested in getting in contact with you, all right? Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the ARCast. Oh, real quick, sorry, before we finish up, I have to say this. For a New Year's resolution, what are your New Year's resolutions coming into 2023?
You want me to go first?
Yes.
So I actually probably go against the grain.
Okay.
I don't believe in New Year's resolutions.
Ooh.
You can boo me. I used to.
That is a wrong answer, ma'am.
So here's the thing. I used to believe, and I used to be like, oh, I'm going to choose this or I'm going to choose that. But for me, what I learned is it actually put me in an extremely unhealthy mindset.
Ooh,
because I was hyper fixated on one thing. But if I stumbled, I felt like I failed for the whole year.
Yeah.
And I was so hard on myself. So what I do instead is I treat New Year's Day like a new chapter of this book that God has given me.
There you go.
And I just choose every day to make sure I do something that I can be proud of to show my kids, or I know, because I always think of like when we get to heaven, God's going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Am I adding anything into that book that warrants that statement?
Yeah.
Because for me, there's always areas I'm going to improve. I'm going to want to drink all the green juice and all the celery juice and all the everything. And TikTok is the craze right now. But do you know, I've spent so much time thinking about this. If we did every self-help thing that is out on the world on TikTok right now, we'd have time for nothing else. And we still probably wouldn't finish them all. So to me, it just puts this unwarranted heaviness on me.
Okay.
So
I like that, though.
I'd probably go against the grain.
No, it's all right. Judges, what do we got? All right. They say that was the right answer. Thank you. That was a good one.
A debut.
A debut. We're taking it away.
Wow. I don't know how to follow that up. I really agree with her. I don't know that I've ever really done New Year's resolutions, so to speak, because they just, to me, they're very fake.
What about somebody who is unhealthy and wanting to get started on that path of being healthy? What advice would you give them as far as like, because it's so hard for certain people just to get out.
Just do something today. Just do something today, right now. Like tomorrow, man, as I say to my kids sometimes, tomorrow might be the rapture, man.
Yeah, that's real.
What's the rapture? But it's true. I mean, we don't know what tomorrow's going to hold. So just do something today. Some little thing today that from a physical point of view is healthy, And if for you that means standing up and doing 20 little calf raises, right where you are right now, if that means dropping down and doing 15 push-ups and 30 seconds of flutter kicks on your back,
There you go.
Just get something done today, and then tomorrow, let's see.
All right. Judges? That was the right answer as well. And Vance, what you got for us, brother?
And that's why when he mentioned if the rapture might be tomorrow, my answer, repent today. Otherwise, you're going to end up
Judges? Yeah, there you go. You get two of those, man. All right, man. Thank you so much, Justin. Man, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for our boy Justin one more time. This has been great. We're wishing you guys a very safe and sober New Year's. I hope you guys, have a beautiful start to 2023. Every day is a blessing. God is good, and you guys have a fantastic one. We'll see you on the next one. Peace. What's going on, everybody? This is Buddha from the ARCast, and I just wanted to thank you for checking out this week's episode. It means a lot, and if you could share it with a friend or a loved one, somebody in need in recovery, or maybe somebody who just needs that little bit of extra positivity in their life, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you would like to join us here on the ARCast, either in the studio live or online, hit us up. The links are down in the show notes of this episode, and on there, you can find direct links to our main website here at Americas Rehab Campus and all of our social media platforms. Follow us. We keep the posts positive and motivational, focused on recovery, health, and wellness. As you know, in this modern day and age, we need as much love as possible, y'all. And as always, if you or somebody you know is in need of substance abuse treatment, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're open 24 hours a day, and our direct phone number is 1-833-272-7342. Once again, that phone number is 1-833-272-7342. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. Much love and God bless. Peace.